But before we get into our market event, I'd really like to open today with our ACC karakia. Kia inoi tātou. Whaia, whaia, whaia te tika, whaia te pono, whaia te aroha, mo te oranga tangata, kia puta, ki te whaiau, ki te au marama, haumie, huie, tae kie. Fantastic. Kia ora. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's market event. My name is Kay Conifray. I'm one of the portfolio managers here at ACC. Really pleased to be speaking to you today alongside some of my esteemed colleagues who I'll introduce in just a moment. Before we get to that, just a little bit of housekeeping. You will see that today's session is being recorded and we will be sharing that with you after the presentation. We are talking to you today about how we want to work together with you to improve the way that we identify clients' needs. You'll see that we've got the Q&A function open and available for you, but we have closed the chat function. If you do have questions that come up as we're going through the presentation, please post those in the Q&A. We've got time at the end to speak to those. However, if we don't get to everything, we will be sharing a copy of the Q&As in the material that we share with you after the presentation. You might also see that we theme up some of the questions if we're starting to see the same questions coming through, and we've got a team who's managing that in the background for us. We're really pleased to see so many of you here today, but in order to keep the platform stable, we have disabled video and audio. We've just found in the past, sometimes with a few people online, it can get a little bit sketchy, so best just to keep it safe. Near the end of the presentation today, we'll also be sharing a link with you where we're looking for just some quick feedback on how you feel today's presentation has gone. There's going to be a QR code which comes up on the screen, and if you're anything like me, you may need to take a minute just to figure out how your camera does that. So this is just an early heads up that that's coming towards the end of today. So before we do get into things, just a little bit of an intro of who you're going to see on the screen today. First of all, we're going to be handing over in a moment to Thomas Ronan, who is our Acting DCE of System Commissioning and Performance. After Thomas, Sarah's going to speak to us a little bit about the background of the initiative that we're discussing with you today. Dilke will then talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we're already doing at ACC, and Brent will then lead our Q&A session. We've also got some wonderful people in the background. So we've got Sophie, Cass, Daniel, Lydia and Christina, who are making sure that everything runs smoothly in the background. So again, any issues, please post those in the Q&A. So with that, I am going to hand the rākau over to Thomas. All yours, Thomas.
Thank you, Kay, and kia ora, everyone. I've already had some robust feedback from the team that I haven't got a ACC approved background, so I'll start with an apology for that one. Hopefully the plain background's okay. Kia ora, my name is Thomas Ronan. I'm the Acting DCE for System Commissioning and Performance. I've been lucky enough to hold that role for the last 8 months or so. And in that 8 months, I've met a bunch of people, both internally in ACC, but also out there in the provider world that work day in and day out to rehabilitate people from injury. I just want to start by recognising all the wonderful work that people on the call here today do, and a massive thank you all to essentially making the scheme what it is at the moment. So I thought it was important to recognise that to start with. What I am going to be doing is setting up a bit of a state of the nation up front to say what's going on with ACC a little bit more generally, and then I will be happily passing over to Sarah to kick us into the presentation more fulsomely. So what you'd have seen recently is a release of a turnaround plan for ACC, which really sets out what we are aiming to deliver to New Zealand over the next few years. And the long story short there is improved performance and delivering better outcomes for New Zealanders. Why? Well, that is the right thing to do, full stop. It is why the scheme exists in the first place, but also because we do have a sustainability issue as a scheme. If you have read any of the news articles recently, you'd have seen that we have about a $25 billion deficit that is due to grow by 2030. That is a significant enough a deficit for it to become a real problem for the scheme in the medium to long term. And so it is vital that we protect the AC scheme. It is a treasure for New Zealand. And I say that as a person from a place that does not have an AC scheme, and we want it to exist for future generations. So it is a good time to be talking sustainability. A lot of this work was kicked off by a review completed by Finity. It was commissioned by the Minister for ACC, and it was around ACC's claims management approach and our overall rehabilitation performance. You can see all of these along with our letter of expectations on our website. I believe most folks would have also received an email from ACC about that too. The priority areas in that turnaround plan focuses in 3 key areas. The first is putting clients first with care that leads to lasting recovery. Second is getting New Zealanders back to work and independence. And the third there is resetting ACC and getting back to basics. I snuck into the presentation and bolded the care that leads to lasting recovery. You can imagine in SCMP that is a huge focus for us at the moment, and a lot of the chats we'll be having with you today will focus on that as well. ACC has been on a journey ourselves in trying to improve how we operate. My substantive role is head of client recovery, and whenever I talk to providers, I tend to get feedback on that role as well. Over the last 18 months or so, we've invested an additional 250 case managers into frontline roles, and subsequently a lot of our recovery teams, including assisted recovery and supported, have seen a material uplift in their performance as well. So hopefully that's something that you are seeing on a day-to-day basis too. This turnaround plan is fundamentally impossible to deliver upon on our own. We are needing help and effort from the health sector at large, from providers, from employers, and for injured New Zealanders themselves and their whānau to make sure that injured people get better faster and to ensure that we protect the scheme for the long term. This really will be a team effort in making sure that the scheme is sustainable in the longer term. It isn't about taking away support for people who need ACC to recover from injuries, but it is going to be ensuring that injured people get the right level of support at the right time, specifically for their injury-related needs within the boundaries of our legislation. So that is where a lot of our focus currently is at. We will obviously continue to work with you folks and the wider sector to improve how we commission key services. That's a massive lever for us. How do we support people with less serious injuries to return to independence faster? And how do we also share information, democratize data with the sector at large so that we can transparently track performance? Next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. So 2026, the focus for the year ahead is really how we're going to be working with the health and disability sector and making sure that we're commissioning for services that really do improve outcomes for injured people. This is the first step in our kind of journey towards sustainability. As I said, we are laser focused on that $25 billion deficit that will accrue by 2030 and ensuring that we fundamentally become a sustainable scheme that's here for future generations. You might have heard about some of the work that we've already started. This is not our first ever market event for ACC. We've got some work out there in the primary and secondary care sectors at the moment. And again, looking at similar work there about how we improve outcomes for Kiritaki. We're really eager to look at the way we support clients with long-term or complex needs. And how we can kind of identify those and make sure the right supports are wrapped around after an accident. You will hear us talk a little bit about return to work. That isn't just to make sure someone isn't claiming weekly compensation, to be really clear. Like, there is medical benefit to recovery at work. We see that it improves outcomes across the board, and so there is a good clinical reason for making sure, and that's kind of our default mode of recovery here. As I said, nothing's going to make a difference or shift the dial without you folks. And the event we're holding today is the start of that conversation and the mahi ahead. There are a few things that we want this session to engage you with and really to start shaping up some ideas on a few key areas. The first would be understanding what a client needs to achieve maximum independence. Okay, how do we do that? The second would be ensuring that we have robust ways of assessing and reassessing needs when they change, a huge focus for us at the moment. And then the final piece is ensuring the sustainability of the services to achieve those outcomes. So any service that we create obviously has to be created in a sustainable way. I suspect that is probably enough of a high-level briefing for me. There's all sorts of excellent content to get into. So I'll be handing over to Sarah and leaving you in the capable hands of the team. And I will finish like I started with a hearty thank you for all of the work that you do out there with injured people, and looking forward to seeing what comes of this mahi and how we can improve the work that we do moving forwards. So Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, Thomas. Kia ora koutou. I'm Sarah Sinnott. I'm the Manager of Recovery Services here at ACC, and I look after a range of services in the transitional and long-term complex care space and also in our mental injury space. So just reiterating Thomas's thank you to all of you. It's great to be here today speaking to you all and just acknowledging the really important work that you do in this space, contributing to how our services operate and support our clients out there throughout New Zealand. So Thomas has spoken about our rehabilitation performance and some of the ambition that we have there and the need that we have to improve our rehabilitation performance. So one of the key areas that we look at in terms of cost in relation to rehabilitation performance is social rehabilitation. Now, Section 79 of the Accident Compensation Act defines the purpose of social rehabilitation, and it refers to a suite of non-treatment and non-vocational orientated rehabilitation services and supports intended to restore a claimant's independence to the maximum extent practicable. So ACC is essentially responsible for funding social rehabilitation when an injury is impacting on a person's independence. And as Thomas mentioned, we are very focused on what it is that is needed to support that injury-related need in line with our legislative boundaries. Social rehabilitation, or ACC's role, is it's intended that we restore independence to the maximum extent practicable, depending on that person's circumstances and their injury. And that could be about a return to work, or it could be about a return to independence in everyday life. So in terms of exactly what social rehabilitation is and who receives it, so we have a mix of clients with both high and low severity injuries who may be accessing these supports. It includes things like aids and appliances, which includes equipment, attendant care and childcare, education support, home modifications, transport-related services, and also includes an other social rehabilitation category, which we use to fund things like music therapy, hydrotherapy, and also our rongoa service is included in the other category. So as you can see on the slide, we have seen a dramatic increase in our spend on social rehabilitation over the last 15 years, and also in the volume of services that are being delivered. So we know that there's a range of drivers impacting social rehabilitation performance growth, and that includes relaxing of some of our controls over time, our case management capacity and capability in terms of decision making around some of these services, different commissioning models that we have in place, increasing capital and service costs, although as you will see later, the growth we're seeing is higher than the rate of inflation. Challenges with establishing a cross-sector approach to funding, some funding challenges, and also challenges around how do we isolate an injury or need from broader health-related needs in an environment where we have more complexity amongst our population. We also know that there have been changing societal expectations as well, and that's around the role of natural supports. So what support might be provided by family members, and also a growing public awareness and increasing expectations of the ACC scheme. So I guess what's important, it's really important that we recognise that we do need to take some action to address the increase that we're seeing, because if we don't, the likely impact is that the next generation may have to pay more through taxes and levies to ensure that the ACC scheme is sustainable and is around for future generations. So spend has increased in almost all areas of social rehabilitation. When we look across the board, we see that all of the ways that we group services, there's been significant growth across the vast majority. And that's as I mentioned, that's at a higher rate than inflation, well above the rate of inflation, which is the dotted line that you can see on this graph. And the area that we've seen the highest increase in costs per claim is in our home support services, and that includes things like attendant care and home help, education support, and home and vehicle modifications. And whilst we've seen growth in all client cohorts, the costs associated with clients who have non-serious injuries and the volume of services that are being delivered to clients with non-serious injuries have increased significantly over the last decade. even though the majority of our spend continues to be directed to those with serious injuries. So as you can see on the screen now, the green lines represent clients with non-serious injuries, and the blue lines represent those with serious injuries as defined by ACC. And as you can see, those blue lines are a lot more stable than the green lines. So we've seen an increase in the number of clients with low severity injuries or temporary needs accessing longer term supports. For example, there's been a significant growth in housing modifications for clients who do not have a serious injury. So I guess just a little bit about why this matters. So in ACC, we talk a lot about the outstanding claims liability. And Thomas mentioned the deficit that is on ACC's books, and that's related to the outstanding claims liability. So the OCL is how we calculate the money that ACC needs to put in the bank now to ensure that clients get the care they need for life. So when an injury occurs and someone comes onto the ACC scheme, we need to ensure that we have the money in the bank to support their needs for the rest of their life, or to a point that they are likely to transition off the ACC scheme. So that means that the decisions we make today have a really big impact on that OCL, or that financial deficit that we see on our books. So decisions that we make today about the number of hours of attendant care, other supports and services that we fund, how client supports change over time, have consequences for the next 40 plus years for the ACC scheme. Now, we've talked about social rehabilitation. As you can see on the screen here, we know that our spend on social rehabilitation is the largest contributor to the outstanding claims liability at 40.6%. And the next highest category there is weekly compensation. So we know that ACC has obviously a big role to play in helping to control rehabilitation spend. And you'll hear Dilke talk about this shortly in terms of our role and some of the work that we have underway in this space. However, it's important to know that an assessment is often the precursor to ACC purchasing a service for a client. We rely really heavily on the expertise of specialised assessors to make sure that we are maximising a client's independence. So our recovery teams, or our case managers, they work with clients to identify when an assessment is needed. They're generally not health professionals, and therefore it's really important that the recommendations we get back in from an assessment are clear, concise, cost-effective, and outcomes-focused. It's worth noting that while we have seen a steady increase in the number of clients accessing social rehab services, and an increase in the amount we're spending on these services, we have not seen an increase in the amount of assessments we carry out. The volume of assessments has generally remained stable. So that tells us that we are not assessing more clients, but the assessments that we are purchasing are leading to an increase in the provision of social rehabilitation following the assessment. So as you've seen and heard so far, as we've talked about, we're really committed to meeting a client's injury-related needs, but we do need to really shift our focus onto client outcomes. So we really need to ensure that the services and the supports that we are purchasing for clients are contributing to an outcome for them that is for their injury-related need. Some of the data that we've shared with you today doesn't give us confidence that we're meeting our requirements, as we are seeing more clients getting more services and supports. They need them for longer, and they're becoming more reliant on those supports. Just to highlight that, one measure we rely on at ACC at an organisational level to understand the outcomes of what we're purchasing for clients and how we're working with them is weekly compensation outcomes, or the ability for someone to return to work and no longer need compensation. So over the last 10 years, the average time clients receive weekly compensation has increased by about 10 days. And the graph on the slides just shows the difference in terms of what we projected our weekly compensation costs to be in 2014. And the top darker line is what is actually happening, and sort of the projection of what we might expect to happen if things don't change. Now here today, we're talking about clients with long-term complex needs. And we know that weekly compensation isn't always a good measure for clients with complex needs. However, at a system level, it is a proxy for us where we can see that at a system level, the services that we're purchasing are not necessarily leading to that better outcome for our clients, and they are needing our help for longer. We believe that there's a need to look more closely at the beginning of this journey and make sure that we are assessing needs appropriately to ensure that clients maximise their independence while considering the sustainability of the ACC scheme. And that is why we're here talking to you today. This is the start of the conversation to help us understand the start of that journey a bit better, how we assess clients' needs, and therefore what support they're going to need ongoing. So now I'm going to hand over to Dilke, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the work we've got going on in this space already.
Great, thanks very much, Sarah. And so as Kay said, I'm Dilke Rasa. I'm Head of Clinical Governance here at ACC. It is great to have this opportunity to share some information and, as Sarah said, start the conversation in this area. So I will start by talking about the current state in terms of assessments, what we know. So as you very well know, the client journey it takes a particular pathway for most people. They have an accident and require some kind of acute inpatient treatment to stabilize their injury. Then those with complex injuries might go on to inpatient rehabilitation, such as a spinal unit or brain injury specialized rehabilitation facility. Or they might go straight home, or they can go into care, but also with supports. We know that these transitions are key milestones and can set the trajectory for a client's recovery. Once a client is at home or in care, any number of interventions can be arranged as needed, such as equipment, rehabilitation, and home and community supports. Across this journey, we are constantly trying to understand the injury-related need and also anticipate what the ongoing needs for the client might be longer term. We know that there are a number of opportunities to do things better within this journey, including supporting smoother transitions, more integrated rehabilitation and community support options, and importantly, understanding the impact or outcome of these interventions. For now, our focus is on how we can understand client needs better. We appreciate that there will always be a need for specialized assessments, such as housing, wheelchair and seating, or transport needs. But we'd like to explore how this can be done in a more collaborative and multidisciplinary way, which then reduces the burden on clients, breaks down the silos of assessments, and ensures we can put the right support in place at the right time. It is also important we have an agreed view of what good looks like for supplier performance, so we can provide feedback in a meaningful way. We know that there are a number of challenges with the way that assessments are currently commissioned and delivered. Over the last few years, we've had a number of engagements with suppliers, our clients, and Kaimahi to gain an understanding of how assessments are being used and some of the issues with these services. Some of the key themes we've heard in relation to assessing these, I will now describe. So for instance, clients can have multiple assessments over the lifetime of their claim, often by different assessors, different suppliers, and for different needs. There is difficulty in being able to separate injury from other conditions or needs. Our referral processes can lead either to very specific referrals or at times be more vague. It can be hard to know when to assess and then reassess client needs. As noted in the previous slide, the transition between acute and community is a key milestone, but understanding client needs at these times can be difficult. When it comes to enabling independence, we need to make sure everyone knows their responsibility in helping the client maximize their independence. However, that's currently difficult because there's no easy way to connect the assessment to what action ACC then takes on those recommendations. We also know that connecting services and removing overlaps would improve client experience. And finally, on this particular slide, we need to make sure that there is a way to measure both client outcome and what good looks like from a supplier perspective. As Sarah mentioned earlier, we do have initiatives in place to help ACC make more consistent decisions and ensure we're clear on what our role is to help control the increase we've seen in social rehabilitation. We know that there are some challenges in our claims management processes, and so as Thomas mentioned at the start, we've been improving both the capacity and capability in that space. We've put in place some strengthened support for our recovery teams to make sure they have access to clinical advice and expertise when it's needed to make consistent decisions. We're also making sure we all at ACC have a shared understanding of ACC's role and how scheme boundaries should be applied. We've increased our monitoring of high-cost services, and some of you may be aware of some of the work being undertaken in our equipment service to ensure we're looking at the most cost-effective options to meet our clients' needs. We also have work underway to look at the services we're commissioning to make sure they interface with claims management processes well, to ensure that clients have the right access at the right time to the services. And lastly, we have a strong focus on outcome-based services to improve return to work and independence for New Zealanders. Over to you, Kay.
Thank you, Dilke, and also thank you, Sarah. That was really cool to hear some really interesting information and hopefully some great background for everyone that's on the call today. It's also really important that that's given you clarity on why we have decided to focus on assessments rather than addressing the individual services. I really hope that you're all feeling as excited as we are about the opportunities that we've got ahead to make some change. Before we get into talking about how you might get involved, I'd really like to just give you a quick overview of how we want to get started. So our approach to this project is going to kick off with an in-depth discovery phase. So we'll be looking to get a deep dive into some of the issues that we've already talked about today. Depending on what we uncover, we'll then be exploring and prioritising some solutions, working in collaboration with providers to develop and test some options. We'll be applying an iterative design because we really want to stay focused on making sure that any changes that we make are made for the right reasons. That approach might change throughout the project. You might also notice that we've used a circular image on the slide in front of you. That's important because we may have some things happening in parallel. So we'll adjust whatever we're doing as we learn, and we'll also be applying a continuous improvement lens to everything as we go through the project. So I really am excited to invite you to be part of something which can genuinely shift the outcomes for clients in whānau across New Zealand. We're going to be establishing an external advisory group, and we're looking for voices like yours to help shape how ACC understands and responds to client needs. You might be wondering, why should you consider applying? Well, you are the people who are the closest to the work and close to our clients. You've seen what really works and also what really helps. Your experience, whether that's in clinical practice, community services, lived experience, commissioning or service delivery, can directly influence the way that the assessments are done and how we support, how supports are connected to real measurable outcomes. This is your chance to turn your insights into national impact. As part of this important group, you'll be collaborating with your peers and other leaders from across the health and disability sector. We'll be testing ideas, helping to design approaches that are clearer, more consistent and more effective so that clients can maximise their independence. And we can ensure that we have sustainable services for the long term. If you're passionate about better client outcomes, about joining up systems, about making every assessment count, then we really do want to hear from you. So we'd like to invite you to submit an expression of interest, and further details about who we're looking for, what those time commitments will be, and the application form will be part of the materials that we share after today's presentation. We'll also have the information available on a few different channels, which I'll speak to shortly, and also give you some background on how to access those documents. Once you've completed your application, we just ask that you email that to us, and that will be prior to the close of business on Monday, the 16th of February. As mentioned, we will be working in an iterative way, and we're currently in the process of confirming how we make sure that we hear as many voices as we can. So while the advisory group will be our primary way of working, we do imagine that there's going to be some other opportunities as we progress. And so if anyone has any urge to be involved, we really strongly ask that you reach out to us via the email address which is on the screen. So in terms of keeping up to date on how things are progressing, we do have a dedicated page on our ACC website, which holds all the information about the health sector engagements, including this project and the other projects which Thomas spoke to in primary and secondary care. On that page, we'll shortly see a recording of today's presentation, the slide deck, and any other information that we publish, along with the application forms and the frequently asked questions. We'll also be providing updates in our provider update newsletter. So I strongly recommend that if you're not subscribed, that's a really good place to go for information. And a final reminder that if there are any questions that you'd like to raise, we have a dedicated email address which is on the screen. We will be hosting more of these events as things move forward, so keep an eye out for further invitations. They're likely to come through the provider update as our primary source, but we will be making sure that they're on the website as well. Great, thank you, Soph. So just, I guess, a bit of an indicative timeframe on how we see things moving from here. We obviously are going to be opening that application for the advisory group shortly, and we're hoping to have all of the responses back to us by the 16th of February. We'll then go through a little bit of a review of those applications and hope to have everybody confirmed by around the middle of March, with the first advisory group to be held by the end of March. That will obviously be based on people's availability, locations, etc. We'll be keeping everyone updated as that happens as well, making sure that we make sure people know who has been awarded into the advisory group. Another little plug, make sure that you're connected to those other mechanisms. Not going to labour these slides too much, but we are posting the application details on both the Government Electronic Tendering System, or GETS, and there are some instructions on the screen on how you can find that information. Oh, sorry, this is the website one first, but we will also have it on our website. So please follow the instructions to search for that health sector engagement page. Sorry, Sophie, went in the wrong order there. Great, so that's the GETS screen there that you can see. Right, so I did give you a heads up at the beginning. Hopefully you've all got your phones out in your hands and ready for that QR code. So we're going to leave this slide up on the screen while we run our Q&As. I would really encourage you to scan that code and give us some feedback on how things have gone today. We will also be sharing the link to the survey when we share the materials with you shortly. So if you don't have time, or if you prefer to stay focused on the Q&A session, we completely appreciate that as well. But with that, I am going to hand over to Brent to manage the Q&A.
Thank you, Kay. Kia ora, everyone. I'm Brent Hapgood. I'm the Workstream Design Lead for Strategic Commissioning. Thank you for all the questions that we've seen come through. The team are working hard in the background to get these up in our Q&A spreadsheet here. So I'll ask the questions and lead into the person who may be best placed to answer that, and other presenters feel free to pitch in as you like. So as a reminder, if we don't manage to get to your question today, all questions will be published on that webpage Kay mentioned. And if you have any further questions that do come to you, feel free to email us on that email address on screen. So getting into it, first question will go to Kay, or Kay, you'll have the first couple. Is the intention to replace the 7 current assessment contracts?
Good question. As I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, the project is going to kick off with a really deep dive into what's happening currently. We don't really have a view on what that's going to result in terms of the 7 assessment contracts which are currently in place. So obviously as things start to shift and change, or we start to decide what some of those changes might be, we'll be sharing that widely with the sector.
Great. And another question here. So by clients with complex needs, and this might be referring to some of the comments Thomas made at the very start, are you referring to clients who have been profiled as serious injury?
Not exclusively, no. We do know that there are a number of clients who may have more complex needs, which are not necessarily classified as what we call serious injured. So it's going to encompass, I think, a wider spectrum of clients.
Fantastic, thanks, Kay. Okay, next question for Sarah. So it's in reference to the graphs that we showed on screen earlier. Are those graphs representing increased expenditure adjusted for population growth over time? Also, does the increase in home care spend include the in-between travel costs following the legislative change?
Thank you for that question, Catherine. And I should have referenced population growth. So no, the graphs representing expenditure haven't been adjusted for population growth. But what we do know is that our the cost and volume growth that we're seeing across our social rehabilitation services, but also more broadly across our other services at ACC as well, are growing faster than we would expect based on claim growth and population growth. Actually, the rate of claim growth over time has remained reasonably stable, but the growth in what we're seeing in terms of cost and volume of service delivered is increasing at a higher rate than that. In reference to the second part of the question, I will come back to that one in the Q&A. Just want to make sure that I'm 100% answering that one correctly. So we'll double check that one, and we will respond to that in the FAQ on the website.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Okay, I think I will stay with you, Sarah, because there is another reasonably related question saying, Sarah mentioned the number of assessments is not increasing, but the provisions following assessments has increased, so services following subsequently. I assume this data is therefore splitting out provisions being put in under HCSS directly rather than via SRNA.
Yep, thank you for that one, Cassandra. So again, the data that we presented today is quite high level. It's quite general. So we're talking generally about what we're spending on social rehabilitation, and then we talked a little bit as well generally about the volume of assessments as well. So no, we won't have split that out for provisions being put under HCSS, but I guess during this early discovery process, we will be looking at all of these things, all of the different ways that we understand and assess clients' needs, and what that therefore relates to in terms of the onward services and supports that they receive. So yeah, that will all form part of the discovery phase as well in terms of those drivers of the onward services provided.
Thanks for that. I'll come to Dilke now. Question here, interesting to see the numbers, both serious injury and non-serious injury accessing services has increased. Have you looked at the percentage of clients relative to total claims accessing services, given the growth in the number of claims? So that may actually not necessarily be for Dilke, but if any of the...
Yes, I was going to say, I don't know off the top of my head. I was going to see if Sarah or Kay knew the answer to that. As far as I know, not, but we might have to go and check that and answer
I
that
definitely think we can go away and just make sure that we're really clear. But I guess to Sarah's point earlier, we haven't seen a substantial growth in the number of claims. So therefore it is that the claims which we are currently managing are probably about the same as they have been for a number of years. It's just the clients without complex or serious injuries seem to be accessing more services. We can definitely try and get some more clarity though.
We'll stay with UK for this next question. How up to date is ACC with social rehabilitation assessments? I'm going to interpret that as the wait list or the backlog potentially.
Short answer is, unfortunately, Christine, I don't know. I believe that our case management model is up to date though, that they have managed to be up to date with assessments which are needing to be done. We can check. Good question.
Thanks again. Thank you. And so, yeah, next question for Dilke then, moving on. Is this approach that we're proposing here today separate to the work in the secondary care space?
Yeah, good question in that with really all three pieces of work, what we're making sure we do across the work streams is keep linked. and aware of what we're learning, with obviously primary care and secondary care starting last year. So I'm going to go with not explicitly linked, but definitely making sure that we're aware of what the learnings from each and applying them as relevant.
Thanks, Dilke. Okay, let's stay with you, Dilke, for this one as well. So if you participate in the advisory group, does that preclude you from submitting any future bids for work that is not yet scoped? In other words, does it introduce a conflict of interest?
I think what we will do is be really careful about conflict of interest management, but I'm pretty confident, this is not a clinical answer and someone else will tell me if I've got this wrong, but I'm pretty confident that participation will not preclude future involvement. In fact, Brent, I can see you nodding,
Yes.
probably the person best to answer that. So yeah, just to re-encourage everyone that being part of the expert advisory group is will be a we would really appreciate that. So do put your names forward and it will not be a disadvantage to you later on.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Dilke. A couple of questions here, which I'll go to Kay on. Why do we think non-serious injury requirements and costs for social rehab have escalated so greatly?
I guess that's a really good question, and that is why we are starting this mahi. We really want to use that discovery phase to really understand what's been happening and why those increases have occurred. So I don't think that we have a really clear answer at this point.
Thanks, Kay. And follow up there, or separate question, is workforce and the increasing needs for home care being considered as a linked item with an aging population? Given that if there are low numbers of staff, then service costs, particularly travel, increase.
Sorry, I'm just rereading the question. I mean, I think we appreciate that there is an aging population, which is possibly driving some of the increases that we're seeing. Again, I think our discovery phase will start to uncover some of that in more detail. I don't know, Sarah, Dilke, if you've got anything else to add to that.
It's obviously that there'll be various factors at play, and understanding what those factors are and how they interrelate, and again the parts that are related to ACC and potentially then the wider sector and society is all part of this. I'll just add that, okay?
Great, thanks.
Sure. Alrighty, let's stay with UK as well for this next question. Is ACC looking or considering reviewing or updating assessment reports from health professionals to ensure sufficient information is being gathered around injury-related needs and options considered?
Elise, I think what you're speaking to there is, I guess, the way that we receive the information when an assessment is carried out. That is definitely going to form part of our discussions. I think we completely appreciate that sometimes it can be a challenge to make sure that we are capturing the right information. So that's definitely something which I'm hoping is part of our work plan.
Yeah, I might add, I was just thinking there's another sort of way to interpret that a little bit, which might be about the quality. So I think absolutely the quality of the referral we put in, the quality of our questions, the quality of the report coming back, the specificity and the actionability of the recommendations, that will need to all be part of the mix as well, I'm sure.
For sure. And I'll open this question up to anyone who would like to answer. Is there a plan to reassess the Inter-RAI assessment tool to ensure it remains fit for purpose and that assessment outcomes align with the intended objectives?
So I think probably the answer to that is that this project will be about looking at all of the different ways that we assess need. And so it may be that we do have some consideration of Inter-RAI as part of that. As Kay has talked about, this part of the project is very much in the discovery phase. So we want to come out and hear from you and from our expert advisory group and look at all of the information and data and things that we have to hand about the way that we assess clients' needs and what that means.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. So that's the end of the questions that we're able to answer here today. But as I say, any further questions that you might have that you send through, or ones that we haven't been able to get to today, we will put up via our FAQs on our website. So I'll hand back to you, Kay.
Thank you, Brent,
Thank you,
and thank you everyone for posting those questions. You've definitely got my brain ticking over into a few things. So again, if you are interested in being part of the conversation, please do take some time to have a look at the application for the advisory group. And any questions, as I said, we have the direct email, which is on our screen right in front of you. So with that, that closes our presentation today, and I will close us with the ACC karakia. Whaia, whaia, whae te tika, whae te pono, whae te aroha, mō te oranga tangata kia puta ki te whaiau, ki te ao marama, haumie, huie, tai kie. Thank you, everyone.